Since the 2 atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there have been at least 32 accidents worldwide involving nuclear weapons, and as a result, a number of weapons have actually been lost. Yes, you heard that right. Lost. Never to be found or recovered again, at least not up to this point in time. Today we're going to look at the data available on the nuclear bombs lost during and after the Cold War. We'll find out how they ended up getting lost and delve into some famous historical incidents. Broken arrow is the term used in the military to indicate an accident that involves nuclear weapons but does not result in a nuclear blast being triggered or an atomic war starting. Specifically, since 1950, at least 32 incidents involving atomic bombs have been recorded, and, according to the Atomic Archive and an investigation, an inquiry carried out by the BBC, at least 6 American atomic bombs are currently unaccounted for. There's no complete list regarding other countries, such as China, Russia, the United Kingdom, and France, because no official information has been released. However, I should tell you that during the Cold War, a number of atomic bombs from the Soviet Union are known to have gone missing. Just to give you an example, in October 1986, a Soviet Union nuclear-powered submarine with 34 atomic missiles on board sank off the coast of Bermuda. I repeat, there were 34 atomic missiles on board. And that's just one example. Chrome Dome was the code name for a program developed between 1958 and 1968 by the United States Air Force that involved conducting airborne alert missions, and we'll explain exactly what that means shortly. Using Boeing B-52 Stratofortress bombers armed with nuclear bombs as a deterrent against the Soviet Union during the Cold War era. So, what kind of missions are we talking about? Essentially, the risk of a nuclear war between the USA and the USSR during the Cold War was so high that, as a precaution, the United States decided to conduct around-the-clock aerial patrols over specific routes that could represent strategic points for an atomic attack on the USSR. Among the various notable cases of lost atomic bombs throughout history, 3 famous historical episodes occurred during the time in which Chrome Dome was in operation involving the United States Air Force. One of these is the Mark 15 thermonuclear bomb, which was lost on February 5, 1958, off the coast of Tybee Island in Georgia, the American state, not the transcontinental country straddling Eastern Europe and West Asia. What happened exactly? During a training mission, a collision between 2 military planes occurred by mistake, causing significant damage to the B-47 bomber that was carrying the Mark 15 nuclear bomb. The pilot therefore decided to drop the weapon into the water to lighten the plane's load before making an emergency landing. The bomb was consequently dropped off the coast of Tybee Island, ending up in the sea without detonating. A second nuclear bomb was lost in the Philippine Sea on December 5, 1965, about 70 kilometers from the Japanese island of Kakaijima. A Douglas A-40 Skyhawk aircraft carrying a B-43 nuclear bomb was scheduled to take off from the Ticonderoga American aircraft carrier for a test flight. However, during taxiing, due to human error on behalf of the pilot, who was moving the vehicle from a lift platform to the aircraft carrier's deck, the plane, unfortunately along with the pilot and the bomb, fell into the sea, ending up at a depth of 4,900 meters, and unfortunately they've never been recovered. A third accident occurred in Greenland, above the American airbase at Thule, on January 21, 1968. In this case, an accidental fire occurred on a B-52 that had departed from New York. Most of the crew managed to abandon it in time, after which the plane crashed and burned southwest of the runway at Thule Air Base. The 4 Mark 28 nuclear bombs that the plane was carrying were destroyed by the fire resulting from the crash. Fortunately, the bombs were not triggered, and there was no nuclear explosion, but they contaminated the glacier where the plane had crashed with radioactive material. For this reason, following the incident, the United States, monitored by the Danish government as Greenland is part of Denmark, removed thousands of cubic meters of contaminated ice, snow, and water and transported them to a storage site in the United States. Another famous accident involving nuclear weapons occurred in Spain, in the town of Palomares. And where's that exactly? Well, it's on the coast of the southern province of Almeria, in Andalusia, and the accident happened on January 17, 1966. In this case as well, 2 American military planes collided midair, and one of them, a B-52 bomber, crashed, scattering 4 1.5 megaton B-28 thermonuclear bombs over the Spanish town of Palomares. One of the 4 bombs ended up in the water, and a recovery mission was therefore almost immediately launched to find it on the seabed. 12,000 people were involved, but it took 80 days and several failed attempts before the device was finally brought ashore. So, what made the whole process so complicated? It was extremely complicated because the device was at a depth of 869 meters and about 5 nautical miles from the coast. Well, that was one bomb, but what about the other 3? The other 3 bombs in this case fell on land, and due to the violent impact it suffered when it hit the ground, one broke, dispersing its radioactive material and contaminating the soil. Okay, we've looked at some of the most famous accidents in history involving atomic bombs, some of which have indeed been lost and never recovered. Now, 2 questions that might come to mind are, why didn't the accidents lead to nuclear explosions? And is there a risk that they could suddenly cause one now? Fortunately, the answer should be quite reassuring to us all. During some of the airborne missions we mentioned, for example, the protocol required that the capsule containing the plutonium be added to the weapon at the last moment, only in case of an attack. Therefore, during a normal reconnaissance flight, even if a bomb had exploded on board, a nuclear explosion would not have occurred precisely because it would have contained no fissile material. Furthermore, even if different protocols were used, that is, even if fissile material, typically plutonium or uranium, were present in the device to trigger a nuclear reaction, a series of precise physical and chemical processes would still be necessary, and they would moreover require very stable traditional explosives as a starting point. Therefore, it is almost impossible that the chain of events necessary for fission to take place could occur in a random or spontaneous way. That's without even mentioning hydrogen bombs, in which nuclear fission in turn triggers nuclear fusion, making the entire process even more complex. Therefore, it is true that the danger of explosion is not actually zero, but in the case of devices containing plutonium or uranium, an explosion could really only possibly lead to the dispersion of radioactive material. A serious situation, but not an extremely serious one. And in any case, even this is a really remote possibility, and even if it were to happen, the places where the lost bombs might be are fortunately far from any human beings. To conclude, as it stands, the lost bombs do not represent a danger to us, and in case anyone is wondering, the possibility that some ill-intentioned state might try to seize them is also very remote. Apart from the fact that the bombs are most likely now unusable, finding and recovering them would be extremely complicated. In fact, especially regarding the ones lost at sea, as nuclear weapons from the Cold War were not equipped with black boxes like those of today, first and foremost, they would be very difficult to locate. Furthermore, even if the weapons were to be located, their positions, often at the bottom of the ocean, make them essentially unrecoverable, both because vessels capable of reaching them and bringing them safely back to the surface are in short supply, and also because of the costs associated with such an initiative. An example is the bomb that fell into the water off Tybee Island, Georgia, in 1958. The weapon lies unexploded on the ocean floor, under a layer of silt between 1.5 and 4.6 meters deep, and there it will probably remain for a long time to come. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and see you again soon for the next video, always here on Geopop Everyday Science. Bye!